Congratulations, you've chosen Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, it is one of the most rewarding hobbies or pastimes or sports that you can have and enjoy. However, it's also one of the most dangerous. As a combat sport, we can't approach Jiu-Jitsu the same way as we might some other form of exercise. Now, this applies to those of us who are competing, but also those of us who self-identify as hobbyists, or you just train recreationally. So all the more reason then to make sure that you're healthy for the rest of your life and being able to continue the practice. So being able to be healthy throughout the lifespan of your chosen time in Jiu-Jitsu requires lots of different things to be in order, and that may be that you have to show up differently when you're in training. So you can't just expect to come in and do the moves with your body and then just expect to go home after and not do anything else. So that's the biggest mistake that a lot of people make, is that they show up oftentimes a few minutes late, just do the moves, roll at the end of class, and then pack up, go home. And that's it. That's about all of the jiu-jitsu that's in their life. Of course, they might go and study a little bit or watch some videos in their off time, but our practice needs to be much more widespread throughout our life and be a lot more intentional if we're looking to, again, sustain this type of activity, knowing that in jiu-jitsu, you're liable to take damage throughout your limbs. It's not often a question of if there's going to be an injury, but a question of when and for how long, and how much your body is prepared to take this damage and how well your body recovers. And there's things that you can do regardless of your age to make sure that you're able to, again, sustain your practice, stay healthy, and recover at any age. So the time that you're in, you want to make sure that if you're in the class for an hour and you're doing an hour of practice, that's an hour of hard work. So when it's time to do something, you're doing that and not doing something else. So for example, a technique is being shown. That's the time that you're downloading that into your mind. You're learning. You're not distracting yourself elsewhere. You're not still on your way to class and just showing up for the rules. That's the time to learn and expand your repertoire of techniques. When it's time to drill, that's not the time to get a few reps in and then look around, talk to your partner about your day or something like that. That's the time of doing that, right? And then that's the time to ask questions. That's the time to check in if everything feels like how it should, if this move feels tight and you're checking in with your professor. How is this looking? Can I improve anything? Great. So that's the time for that. And then when it's time to roll, this is one of the biggest things that I see people stalling. So stalling doesn't just happen in competition. Stalling actually happens in training a lot. It's equivalent to when you're maybe running, how I used to experience running in school, and I would get tired, so I'd be like, I'm just gonna tie my shoelace maybe for the 5th time on this lap. So the equivalent of that in jiu-jitsu is that you might find yourself pausing when you're rolling to talk, to ask questions to your partner. But that was the time when you were drilling, so a lot of the time people as well aren't devoting the right time to when it's time to roll. A lot of my students will know and recognize me telling them less talking, more rolling, right? So that's the time to focus on your sparring. There should be very little talking, if at all, during those times. And yeah, when it's time to complete the class and finish the jiu-jitsu practice, that's the time as well to, maybe talk a little bit with your friends to solidify that community, to check in and connect with those around you. Hey, what's up?
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias. And so notice how in the practice, in that hour, it's hard work, but there's still other things that need to be done in order to be successful in your jiu-jitsu practice. So outside of training, you need to be putting in time proactively to recover, which could take the form of stretching. It could take the form of going to saunas and cold plunges, float tanks. It could be getting rehabilitative therapy, such as osteopathy, physiotherapy, massage, chiropractor, or seeing a naturopath for information on supplements, things of this nature. And aside from that, there may be time that you're putting extra time into conditioning, strengthening routines. And all of this can't be done in that hour of practice. It's too much burden on that hour, and it's honestly too much burden on your instructor or your teammates. So this is something that you have to put in extra time for, which is going to get your body, your mind right and ready for your actual hour of hard work in jiu-jitsu. And then afterwards, you're going to be filling in those blanks that you need for your health. And as well, same thing, you need to be properly identifying for yourself where the holes in your game might be, and then actively going and researching what can I do better, what moves and escapes and execution of different attacks can I sharpen up, and then implement that into drilling. So when people come in and they're just focused on, all right, let me rep these few techniques of the day, get a few rolls in, and that's it, you're going to find that your growth in skill is limited, your growth in athleticism is limited, your recovery time is going to be too slow once you get injured. And again, it's not a question of if, but when it happens, and how serious it is, and how quick you can recover. And then also, you might be noticing that just practicing jiu-jitsu itself isn't enough to really give you the energy, the stamina to really get through your rounds without getting tired. So everybody's going to get tired at least a little bit, everybody's going to sweat, but the question is, if you're feeling completely exhausted, worn out after every single rolling session, after every round, chances are that you're not putting in that time that you need outside of the training to really sharpen up your vehicle, your body, as the vehicle for which you're doing your jiu-jitsu. All right. So again, it does take a little bit more care, a little bit more effort, a little bit more time and intentionality. But once you develop a structure, a routine to how you're going to support yourself with these things outside of your practice, your jiu-jitsu is going to flow better. You're going to find yourself not on the receiving end so much. You're going to enjoy your practice more, and you're going to be able to sustain that practice for as long as you want, as long as you enjoy jiu-jitsu, which I hope will be for your lifetime and my lifetime. All right, thanks for tuning in.